This week feels like a real pressure cooker moment in Washington. It's like every single part of the American system of government is being squeezed, all at the same time. We're seeing this convergence of crises that's really testing the very foundations of power. So we're going to break down what it all means. And it really all starts with the clock. I mean, we are just 4 days away from a potential government shutdown. And that right there, that's the immediate ticking time bomb that has the entire Capitol completely on edge. But here's the thing, this isn't just about some budget fight. That shutdown, it's really just the flashpoint for a much, much bigger story. We're talking about a story that involves the courts, national security, America standing on the world stage. All of these core institutions are facing a moment of reckoning, and it's all happening at once. All right, so let's start with that immediate threat, the political battle that could literally grind the entire federal government to a halt. So what this shutdown fight really shows us is a complete breakdown in communication. On one side, you've got Democrats framing this as a crisis, totally manufactured by extremists who are holding the country hostage. But then, on the other side, you have Republicans saying, hey, we've already passed a clean funding bill. That's a bill with no extra policy stuff attached, just money to keep the lights on. They're arguing that it's the Democrats who are blocking it and creating the crisis. It is a classic Washington standoff, right? Each side is just pointing the finger at the other for the chaos that's about to unfold. But here's what's so interesting about the stakes. Even some Republicans, like Congressman Hill, who are right in the middle of this, are openly admitting that shutdowns are just a terrible idea. He points out that they don't save any money, actually they usually end up costing more, and they really damage the economy. Crucial data like the jobs report could get delayed. It just weakens the country across the board. So no one really wins. Okay, but this time there's a whole new threat on the table. The Trump administration isn't just talking about the usual furloughs. They're talking about mass layoffs. And you gotta understand the difference. A furlough is temporary. People usually get back pay. A layoff, that's permanent. The thinking from the administration seems to be, well, if a worker can be sent home, maybe they weren't all that necessary to begin with. This is a huge escalation, and it totally challenges the job security of the entire federal workforce. So while Congress is basically at war with itself over the budget, the executive branch is opening up a whole other front. This one, it's a direct confrontation with the justice system. And this is where President Trump's justification for indicting former FBI Director James Comey comes in. He's not framing this as just a legal thing. He's framing it as a necessary move to root out corruption. He's basically calling Comey a political enemy who helped weaponize the Justice Department. So from the president's point of view, this is all about retribution. Well, almost immediately after the indictment dropped, James Comey fired back with this really defiant video response. He even quoted the line, "Fear is the tool of the tyrant," and basically challenged the administration, saying, "Bring it on, let's go to trial." And just like that, what could have been a quiet legal proceeding blows up into this very public, very personal clash between a sitting president and his former FBI director. So the big question is, how strong is this case, really? Well, according to someone who would know, former Watergate prosecutor Nick Ackerman, it's incredibly weak. He lays out a few key reasons. First, the main witness has apparently changed their story. Second, the prosecutor is an insurance lawyer with no grand jury experience. And maybe most importantly, career prosecutors had already looked at this and decided there was just no case here. His prediction? The whole thing will probably get thrown out. Okay, so this theme of executive power being tested, it doesn't stop with the justice system. It bleeds right over into this huge intersection of big tech, national security, and global economics. And the perfect example? The forced sale of TikTok. So when the initial news of the TikTok deal broke, one of the biggest surprises was the price tag. Just $14 billion. I mean, that caught analysts completely off guard. People have been estimating its value at up to $40 billion, given its huge US audience. So you have to ask, why the massive discount? Well, if you dig into the details of the proposed deal, you start to get some clues. So the Chinese parent company, ByteDance, would have to reduce its direct ownership stake. But here's the catch. It would still keep a huge financial interest. We're talking maybe half the profit through these really complex revenue sharing and licensing deals. And that's got a lot of people in Congress asking, wait a minute, does this deal even do what the divest or ban law was supposed to do? And I think more importantly, it just shows how incredibly difficult it is to really separate these huge tech platforms from China's economy. This could set a really complicated precedent for the future. Now, of course, none of these pressures at home are happening in a vacuum, right? They're actually mirrored by this immense strain on America's role in the world. And that was on full display this week at the United Nations General Assembly. You can really see how America's foreign policy is getting pulled in two totally different directions right now. I mean, look at Ukraine. There, the U.S. is pretty much aligned with its usual allies in Western Europe against Russia. But then you look at the war in Gaza, and the U.S. finds itself more and more isolated, standing with Israel, while many of those same allies are criticizing Israel's actions. It's just a really stark illustration of the contradictory pressures on American foreign policy today. And honestly, this powerful quote from Ukrainian President Zelensky at the UN kind of sums it all up. It just perfectly captures this theme that echoes from the global stage all the way back to Washington. It's this feeling that the very institutions that were designed to create stability and order, both here at home and around the world, are getting weaker under all this pressure. So let's take a step back and put all these pieces together. You've got the shutdown, the indictment, the TikTok deal, the fractures on the world stage. When you look at all of it, one big question really emerges. What does this all mean for the balance of power? And really, the big takeaway is this. What we're witnessing is a massive, system-wide stress test. It's not just one crisis. It's a legislative crisis, a judicial crisis, a national security crisis, and a foreign policy crisis, all happening at the exact same time. And each one is just making the others worse. And so that leaves us with a really critical question to think about. In a moment like this, when all the traditional guardrails and institutions seem to be buckling under strain from every single direction, what is it exactly that's supposed to hold the center together?